Some of my favorite shows of all time are adult cartoons. Shows like South Park, King of the Hill, and Bob's Burgers shaped the humor I have today. I wanted to do something to celebrate these shows, so I came up with the idea to go back and watch a lot of adult cartoon pilots and put them on a tier list. Before we get into talking about the first pilot, though, I have to ask a question. What makes a good pilot? In my opinion, a good pilot introduces the main characters, displays the tone of the show, and gives us an idea how the show is going to be like. With that being said, let's get started with Family Guy's pilot, Death Has a Shadow. I love the early seasons of Family Guy. Not only is it funny, but it can also be quite heartwarming. That is one of the reasons why I don't like modern Family Guy. Not because it's not funny, because truth be told, it can be really funny, but because it isn't very heartfelt. In the early seasons, it feels like the Griffins are a loving family, but by the later seasons, it feels like they all hate each other. One great instance of the Griffins actually loving each other is in the pilot, Death Has a Shadow. This episode is great as a pilot. We are introduced to the main characters' personalities really well. Peter being stupid but also a loving man, Lois being a bit of a nag but still loves Peter even though he is stupid, Stewie being an evil genius, Chris being stupid, Brian being Peter's conscience, and Meg being a teenage girl. This is how the characters acted in the early seasons, but in the later seasons they completely changed. But this isn't a video about why Modern Family Guy sucks, so let's move on. The intro to this episode shows a main component of the comedy, which is reference humor, with a parody of the Brady Bunch. Now, this is a double-edged sword, because sure, it's funny to me since I know most of the references, but also, in 50 years, a lot of people won't know who Jerry Seinfeld is. But still, funny. This also introduces the cutaway gags. This episode has some fantastic ones, like the salad bar guard.
Take it outside, lady.
I also like how the cutaways always have something to do with the episode, and it's not just random. Now the main reason why I love this episode. Peter goes through the episode making stupid decisions, and it bites him in the ass. He gets drunk the night before work, which makes him tired when he goes to work, where he accidentally lets dangerous toys out into the world, and he gets fired. Then he gets a welfare check that is worth $150,000, and he cashes it. Then he gets charged with welfare fraud. I hate in Modern Family Guy when Peter will do something horrible and nothing bad ever happens to him. But then again, this video isn't about why Modern Family Guy sucks, so let's get back on topic. The true heart of this episode is the ending where Peter says that he did what he did so that his family could have a good life. That is so sweet and shows that he actually loves his family. The last thing I want to talk about is how the A and B plots merge in the end, which I will talk about why that is fantastic in the next entry because I have a better example there. Just for now, know that is a technique that only great writers can do well, and this episode does it well. I'm putting Death Has a Shadow in A tier. Smiling Friends is the newest show on this list, only premiering its pilot in 2020. I'm just going to put it out there bluntly. I love Smiling Friends. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea with his weird sense of humor, but it's right up my alley. But how does this pilot hold up to the rest of the show? It's fantastic. Desmond's Big Day Out is one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. It perfectly introduces all the main characters and their personalities. Pim being the optimistic one trying his hardest to make Desmond smile, Charlie being more pessimistic, Alan being deadpan, Mr. Boss being, strange, and Gleb being Gleb. It also introduces the show's plot really well with a company called Smiling Friends wanting to make people smile. They show this by following the main duo, Charlie and Pim, going to try and cheer up what they think is a kid who is down in the dumps, but then it turns out it's a depressed middle-aged man whose wife and kids left him so he doesn't want to live anymore. This also shows the tone of the show, which is surreal, kind of stupid in a good way, and also pretty dark. One of my favorite things in this episode are the background jokes. The best scene to show this is where Pim takes Desmond to his house to show him how much family means. It goes really, really poorly. But in the background you can see a kid running around, and you can even see a picture frame with the same kid and it's still running. Hilarious. Another background joke is when you can see the mom, and for some reason the wine bottle is just a PNG, which is funny as hell. Even the character interactions are hilarious.
I love helping kids. I love kids, Charlie. I love kids.
Pim, I would really not be screaming that at the top of your lungs.
This episode also introduces that they will be using many different art styles in the show with the Rotoscope Man. The last thing I want to talk about is the A and B plot and how they come together in the end. This marks the talent of the team because it's really hard to merge two completely different plots like Alan trying to find his cheese and Charlie and Pim trying to cheer up Desmond, but somehow they do it perfectly. I can't even begin with how much I love when shows merge the A and B plots, since it makes the episode feel more thought out and full, rather than there just being two separate plots and they don't have anything to do with each other. I'm gonna put Desmond's Big Day Out in S tier.
I'm going down south, I'm gonna have myself a time.
South Park is one of my top 3 favorite animated TV shows of all time, so obviously I love the pilot, right? No, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The pilot is Cartman Gets an Anal Probe. This pilot shows off the characters' personalities like Cartman's an asshole and fat, Kenny dies, Stan and Kyle are literally the same character, but they fix that in the later seasons. Yeah, this episode doesn't give much characterization, except for Cartman and Chef. I just find this episode extremely unfunny. Don't get me wrong, there are some good jokes here.
Viewed from above, form strange patterns.
Hey, that kinda looks like Tom Selleck.
But a lot of it is Cartman farting fire, laugh, or Stan throwing up, laugh, or the kids saying stuff they're not supposed to, laugh. Sure, South Park is stupid, but in the later seasons, it has so many ridiculous plots, but they still make the episodes funny. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm putting Cartman Gets an Anal Probe in C tier. Bob's Burgers is the show I've probably watched the most of in my life. Me and my sister for about 2 years straight would just watch Bob's Burgers and only Bob's Burgers. We would have it on at all times, and I've probably seen the first 4 seasons about 20 times. So how does the first episode hold up? It's pretty great. Human Flesh is the pilot of Bob's Burgers, and it does everything a great pilot should. It introduces the main characters, Bob, a deadpan hard worker, Linda, a upbeat gal, Louise, a conniving little girl, Gene, a goofy guy, and Tina's the weird one. This episode also shows the plot of the series by showing that Bob is an owner of a struggling business, and he has to deal with that and the hijinks that his family gets up to. This episode is about Louise telling everyone at Show and Tell that Bob uses human flesh for their burgers since she has nothing else to show. It's definitely a weird plot to start off the series, but I love this episode. The character dynamics are great. Just look at the kitchen scene when Bob first meets Hugo.
Stick, Tina.
How many toothpicks on the ground?
Don't play this game again.
Come on, how many toothpicks?
No, it just involves me cleaning up toothpicks.
It's comedy gold. It even has a heartwarming ending where Linda tells Bob he isn't a screw-up and that they'll get through this. The only downside is the animation is pretty ugly. The animation does get better throughout the series, so don't let that stop you from watching this fantastic show. What a great pilot. Honestly, it shouldn't be up this high, but I'm putting Human Flesh in S tier. Don't take that out of context, please. Slippin' Jimmy is absolute shit. I don't know how the people at AMC were like, hey, I have a fantastic idea for a show. You know Better Call Saul, the adult drama set in a grounded universe? Well, let's make an animated prequel series where demons exist. I wouldn't be that mad, but Vince Gilligan himself said it was canon, so no. I hate this show so much. If it was just based off of nothing, it would still be terrible. But since it's tearing down one of my favorite TV shows of all time, no. Everything wrong with this show is shown in the pilot episode, Fistful of Snowball. First off, the animation is really bad. The characters feel really stiff, and the designs are just, Then there are the jokes. Most of the jokes in this show go like this. A character will say something. Another character doesn't understand what that character means. The characters argue for a bit, and then there will be a whole laughing riot. Even if it's not like that, the jokes just run on for forever. Also, Better Call Saul is a grounded series, and Jimmy fucking has squirrel armor? No! Why the hell is this episode a Western parody? Who looked at Better Call Saul and wished that Jimmy would be in a Western? I despise this show, but the pilot does do one thing right. It shows how god-awful the rest of the show is going to be. Fistful of Snowball goes in D tier. King of the Hill is another one of my favorite animated TV shows of all time, but the pilot, named Pilot, is only okay. It introduces the main characters pretty well. Hank having a bit of an anger problem, stubborn, patriotic, and sells propane and propane accessories. Peg being a loving woman, and Bobby being the exact opposite of his father. They also introduce most of the neighbors pretty well. This episode is also really funny.
And they've got a pool.
Honey, let's give him Luann.
So, this episode is about Hank's anger and how the town thinks he abuses Bobby. This ends up with a person from Child Services trying to take Bobby away. I didn't like this part because the only reason why he tried to take Bobby away was because he heard Joseph doing a Hank impression and thought it was Hank. It's also really stupid that the child service agent didn't check with the baseball coach if Bobby actually got the black eye from the baseball. The main reason that this episode is only okay though is near the end. Bobby starts being mean to Hank because Hank can't yell at him, otherwise Bobby will be taken away. Then Bobby found out that the case was dropped, but he doesn't tell Hank and he continues to antagonize him. This is so frustrating and I hate that Bobby does this. But the ending is admittedly pretty good, with a heartwarming scene between Bobby and Hank. Hank tells him that Bobby is his boy and nothing will change that. But in the end, Bobby being a bitch made this episode ranking go down. Pilot is going in B tier. This was a fun ride down memory lane. If this video does good, I'll make another one since there are still a lot of shows I need to talk about. So like and subscribe for that. So thank you guys for watching and goodbye.